give a big hand to Timur Artemyev, entrepreneur and health span philanthropist, director of the board at Retroto from the United Kingdom. Peter Fedichev, CEO and co-founder at Giro from Russia and Singapore. Moderated by Phil Newman, editor-in-chief at Longevity Technology.
Hi everybody, my name is Phil Newman. I'm the editor-in-chief of Longevity Technology. We're a number one destination for people that are involved in the emerging sector of longevity, both investors and startups. And I am joined today by Timur Artemyev and Peter Fedichev. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Well,
how are you both?
All good.
Yeah, great. So just a brief bio. Timur has 15 years of experience in financing, both in biotech and in the longevity field, and is also a board of director of the Evegny Nuclear Laboratory in New York, and has been involved in the Institute of Biology of Aging as well. So Timur, welcome. I think your years of experience are going to be very valuable today. Thank you. And Peter Fedichev is an entrepreneur and scientist with over 20 years of experience again in biotech. And Peter co-founded two biotech companies, Quantum Pharmaceuticals, a drug discovery company, and Giro, a very exciting longevity startup. So I'm very pleased to have you both here today to help us with this this question about longevity. And interestingly, of course, the discussion topic that we've got is the world population is getting old, and is this the opportunity of a lifetime? And of course, many people that are in their younger years, we'd be looking at the older generation and wondering whether this concept of the silver tsunami is something that's to be worried about and concerned about from a global population's perspective, or something to be embraced. Now, I'm 53 years old, so I'll just state that right now. And a lot of people talk about people being over 50 as in the longevity category. So I'd just like to state for the record that I'm 53 and feeling fine. Thank you very much. So just looking at the wider picture, what would you say, Timur, with your experience of being in the longevity field, like myself, not as a scientist, but somebody that's looking from the outside? Do you feel the silver tsunami is something that we should be concerned about, or something that we should be embracing?
I think it's great, and I see huge changes for the last 15 years. We would not be taken seriously 15 years ago talking about rejuvenation pills, and there are dramatic changes now. Investors are asking, guys, do you really have rejuvenation pills? So it is a big shift in mindset, and yes, it will be a silver tsunami, and I do hope those people will be happy. They will be achievers, and they will bring and reproduce that experience because of their ability to work. So I think it's a good thing.
So you feel that obviously having people who've got experience in the workplace and able to work for a longer period of time, perhaps because of their financial need as well, because obviously retirement plans are challenged all around the world, that's a positive thing.
They will, of course, they will work, hopefully less for financial needs, more for humanitarian needs or wishes. Most of the people at that age having solved their core problems with real estate, etc. So yeah, but those pension issues are a problem which hopefully will be solved somehow with robotization, automatization.
Yeah, excellent. And of course, Timur mentioned there an anti-aging pill, and of course, Peter, a pill that cures all age is something that is going to be quite a significant challenge scientifically. And I know that your organization is looking more across the scope of targets for diseasing. So could you maybe just explain about your view on the science of a longevity pill and how far away we may be from that?
Oh, thank you for the question. It appears that everyone ages. That's what we know from our early years. And I would say that we're kind of victims of anthropocentric view. So it turns out, and people started believing into that for maybe 20 years, that there are animals which do not age. Of course, some primitive animals do not age, and that was always fun in biology, but nobody was thinking seriously about that. But it also appears that there are some birds, there are some fish, there are some mammals which do not age. Just last year, Calico, which is the daughter company from Google, made an experiment involving 6,000 animals, naked mole rats. And they observed that with this number of animals, they know for sure that for a few thousands of years, these animals do not age, and those are mammals. So first, what I want to bring here is that it appears that there are animals as advanced as mammals which do not age. And if somebody knows how to do that, for us, for engineers, for bioengineers, that's not even a challenge. We need to be able to reproduce it with our own hands. And there is now the whole industry starting to try, not even try, to do it, to slow down or maybe even reverse aging.
Yes, and I guess that this is the category of therapies that a lot of people in the space are calling rejuvenation therapies. And of course, a lot of rejuvenation therapy technologies are focused on specific targets. So there may be what are called senolytics, which are helping with cellular aging and the process of cellular aging in the body. But of course, there's a consideration to say, well, okay, well, maybe my cellular structure is not aging and I'm extending my life, but maybe my cognitive function is still diminishing. So this concept of dealing with a rejuvenation therapy that wraps all elements of aging is obviously really the point where we as a sector would like to get to. And I guess that I'd be interested in either Timur or Peter, your views on whether we should be incrementally moving towards a longevity outcome, helping people with perhaps their cellular aging, while we get on the journey towards a poly pill for aging. Do you feel that there's a stepping stone in this process?
Peter?
Well, I would say that there is a growing consensus now among the practitioners of anti-aging technologies, is that for whatever magic or somewhat understood reason, if you have a pill which slows down or rejuvenates an aging or rejuvenates an animal, you magically see improvements in multiple what is called pillars of aging. For example, in our experiments, we rejuvenate the immune system of mice, of animals, but at the same time we see cognitive improvement, and that's what everyone else sees. Just one thing, just to get you a feeling what's going on there. You may know that if you put a younger person in the room, a kid, this kid starts running around the room and investigating the corners and so on. If you put an adult in the room, you go into the center and you chat with another adult. You don't see anything fun in investigating one more corner. You have seen those corners in your life a lot. So what appears to happen when you do a rejuvenation pill like a senolytic, if you give it to a mouse, an old mice starts exploring the room. So it's less depression, more fun. The exploratory behavior is also reset. So multiple pillars of aging are reduced at the same time. So that's why I'm kind of optimistic. If you do things right, you don't only see an animal with a wonderful immune system. You see better cognitive abilities, you have better mood, and hopefully more exploratory behavior.
Understood. So obviously that's the high level view of where the sector is endeavoring to get. Now, Timur, obviously you're famously involved in a company called Retrotrope, which is classified as a longevity business. Maybe you could expand a little bit more on why you got involved in that company and what opportunities you saw there.
Yes, this is one step towards staying healthy and not getting old so quickly as people got used to. We are fortifying cells, membranes, cell membranes, mitochondria, and eye retina, and we are at the last stage of clinical trials. So hopefully that will give people extra few years in their lives and those few years are very important for them, because they will stay healthy, they will stay conscious. I think it is incredibly important. Also, Retrotop is dealing with some diseases caused by genetics. For example, ALS. If you do remember Ice Bucket Challenge, when famous people would put an ice on their head and shoulders. Yeah. So that's the reason why I decided to be involved. And if tens of such an incremental steps will be realized, we will probably live 10, 15, 20 years longer. And who knows what will be invented at that time.
Yeah. So obviously, with regards to getting involved in an organization as an investor, what are you looking for from the founders or from the science that sits behind the technologies? What are the triggers that you're looking for in an investment opportunity in longevity?
Of course, I have got two different approaches. As a philanthropist, I am supporting a scientific lab, and this is a fundamental science, which is rarely pays off into a real spin-off companies and real business and exits with cash. Rarely. Another approach is when I see the company which is doing a very important thing and struggling with investments simply because industry is doesn't count this company as a famous one or trendy one. And for example, that has happened a year and a half ago when Retrotop needed money to start clinical trial on children. And since I put my money into, other investors came and also put money into, and now we are at the end of last phase of clinical trials with the real hope and grounds to file an application for drug approval into FDA.
Very good. So I guess that what you're looking for is a tactic where you're looking for a recognized disease to prove the safety of a drug or an intervention, with a view then to progressing that forward then to perhaps a longevity type application.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah, and Peter, obviously, your organization, your company Giro, is using a different take on the way to find these targets for longevity, and obviously the structure around the compounds that may affect those. You're not just using AI, you're also using physics. So could you maybe just explain a little bit more about how the complexity of your systems helps to identify these potential longevity targets?
Well, the goal is not of course to produce the most complex system to tackle aging. The goal is to study a system as complex as human aging. I think that's important. Humans actually are very successful agers. We don't consider ourselves like that, but if you compare yourself to a mouse, you would see that we enjoy almost 100 years of life. Mice have no chances to develop most of our diseases because they succumb to cancer in 2 years. So they are failing essentially for a single reason. If you can cure cancer in mice, you will extend lifespan of that animal enormously. I don't know even how much. So that's why we're not trying to learn aging from mice, which is fun academically, but we're actually using big data from humans. We're proud to work with UK Biobank, for example, which is the largest repository of clinical data, genetics, everything on normally healthy, whatever it means, aging humans. And we're doing good old school physics on them. So essentially, we're measuring their state right now and try to predict, predict a trajectory of a projectile flying to the moon, for example, or to your enemy country. Doesn't matter. We're predicting where this human being is going to end up, medical-wise. And once we have such a predictive model, we should be able to learn from the model how to interfere and slow down the aging. So that's the core of our approach. And otherwise, we're a standard biotech. So once we understand what we want to do, we design an intervention and we try it first in mice and then in humans, hopefully.
Interesting. So obviously a longitudinal study over a period of time is one of those ways in which you can validate your let's call it your algorithms, for want of a better word, on a group of patients.
The bad, I'm sorry for interrupting, the bad joke is that in New York you are born poor and most probably a person of color on average, and then by the age of 90 you die most probably white and rich. So if you do not study the longitudinal portion of the data, you have no idea what should you do in order to stay healthy for a long time. And we are bringing this time dimension into biology with the help of modern machine learning and good old school physics.
Right. So I mean, when you're modeling your outcomes, because I know that you're based in Singapore and you're working with Professor Brian Kennedy, who obviously is another pioneer in the field of longevity. So you're actually working with human data from a data perspective, but likewise, are you seeing some of your work now coming into clinical trials as well?
Well, we're not yet in clinical trials, so our best achievement so far is in mice. So we have generated a therapeutic agent which was able to convincingly prove or provide an example of rejuvenation. So we made a very short intervention, about 10 days, in very old animals, and we extended their lifespan by about 40 days, and we rejuvenated essentially every system which you can measure, including their cognitive function.
Interesting. Interesting. So I guess that because I know that you're fundraising at the moment, Peter, and Timur, as a professional investor, do you feel that people are starting to see the longevity sector coalesce to become a target, for example, like fintech used to be back in the days before it became fintech? Do you see that happening with longevity now?
We have to understand that finance is quite a technical and mathematical and quite simple thing. You're dealing with numbers. Of course, you're dealing with psychology, but you can test a demand by an experiment. And we should not compare fintech, for example, and biology, because biology is far more complicated than fintech, and biology is far more complicated than rocket science. So rocket science is nothing compared to biology. And even now, biology is not a precise science. There are lots of conflicts, there are lots of disagreements, and if you will just try to study biology, you will have to read 15 million publications on PubMed. So how long time you will have to spend on it, right? So investing in biology is more a choice of either being a professional in very narrow field, which you know and you can say in confidence that this compound will work, or this team particularly will work or sell the product. And of course, it has to be done with some professionals who are on the field for a long year, for many years, and that attempt has been proven not very successful. After many clinical trials, we have seen even big pharma companies abandoning some areas or some diseases, feeling hopeless to solve the problem, even investing billions of dollars. And we should not give up with that because there are other pharma companies being very successful and very profitable and having lots of money and huge revenues. It's just risky. Another approach is to think that investing into biology, you're not just earning money, you're gaining knowledge about your own health. You're gaining knowledge about how human body works. So you're effectively investing in your own longevity by the way of investing into the field and getting naturally more motivated to learn more, to study more. And of course, you do good for humanity. It is much better to invest into something which will prolong 5 or 10 years or more of work for experienced people who can deliver, who can make our life better, rather than invest into something which is pretty much useless.
So I guess that this is the argument that has been had in our sector about health span, the increase of health span in the life and the compression of morbidity at the end of life, with a view that obviously by interventions that can help you to identify much earlier issues that you may have with your health, as well as implementing those lifestyle changes, everything from a good diet to the right supplementation to the right exercise to lengthen your telomeres and so on. You're saying that really, as an investor, you're seeing that as the opportunity, as well as the knowledge that you're gathering as an investor yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, I would suggest if someone who has zero experience investing in longevity or health tech area, I would suggest go first to diagnostic. Diagnostic is way less risky. It's way more technical. And there are plenty of startups who are doing now diagnostics and being very successful and having lots of customers.
Yes, that's interesting. Yes.
Yeah. But of course, if you want to play hard straight away, go to biology.
Yes,
welcome.
Yeah, I guess, and going to the complex end of things. Obviously, Peter, your organization is at that high end complexity, which of course is where the high risk and the high reward exists. But of course, that increase towards health span, which means that we have healthier lives and perhaps live longer. That is the term in the industry that we call escape velocity, where we live long enough for the science to come up behind us so that actually the science can intervene before we die to help us extend our life. And I guess that it always begs that question as to how long till we can achieve escape velocity. And do you have an opinion on that at all?
Well, I think I have, at least from what I see with my own eyes, it appears not only in my hands, but also our friends and competitors are also working hard. And some of them are now bringing their treatments into clinical trials, which means that just statistically, at least one of them should be successful, I think, in about 5 years' time to produce such an intervention, an anti-aging intervention, really the hardcore drug against fundamental mechanisms of aging on the market, let's say in 5 years. Of course, at first that would be available to super old people, maybe with specific diseases, so doctors will have to, think and learn how to use this. So maybe an average Miss and Mr. Joe will get it maybe in 10 years. But if those compounds would let people live 10 years more, that means that we, humanity, human beings, for the first time, are approaching or have even achieved that longevity escape velocity. In 10 years, we are going to get something which will increase lifespan on average for 10 years, which is a remarkable achievement. And anything more than that is a stupid extrapolation. I mean, think what people will invent in another 10 years.
Yes, and I guess it's that concept of Moore's law applied to biology and the research area of longevity.
Look, just one example. We know Mr. Carter. He got cancer, melanoma, which extended with metastasis into the brain, and he would be dead. So if he got his cancer 5 years ago, with his age, 90 years old, that was pretty realistic, he would be dead. But with immunotherapy, he ended up cancer-free. I mean, he's incredibly lucky. So only 10% of people are as lucky as he. But nevertheless, for him, just 5 years of biotech progress was a binary event, differentiating between life and death. So that's what I see, kind of an example of what kind of things lots of people can actually do against all kinds of the diseases if you are let live 5 more years.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that just thinking then about our audience today, we're going to have a mixture of people that are pre-startup, startups, scale-ups, people looking to invest. Obviously, we are representing a conversation about the field of longevity. I personally have seen an acceleration over the last 2 years of investor activity and startup activity. And Timo, you mentioned, of course, that diagnostics is a growing area. We get a lot of products that people ask for us to review about managing biomarkers of whatever nature. Where would you see the maturity of the sector now from an investor's perspective and a startup's perspective? Do you feel that we're still, right at the bottom of the Gartner hype curve, that we're still very early stage, or do you feel that the sector is now starting to grow in people's minds and awareness? Either of you.
Let me answer first. I think we are at the very early stage, because at the moment we see a huge success in a very primitive diagnostics startups. For example, let's say Flow, the startup which has got quite a simple functionality, but acquired a lot of customers and got fantastic exit. So I can easily predict that in the future we will have way more sophisticated technologies with also exits, but we are at the beginning. For example, I can tell you one idea which is kind of flying in the air, which is very weird. That's why I will say that, but still possible. A father of one of my friend and colleague has died from skin cancer. And when you go to a doctor, the doctor have to physically look at all the spots on your skin, which is a waste of time. Let's imagine I can easily do it in my shower. I would have tons of cameras around inside my shower. So when I'm taking my morning or evening shower, AI system would scan all the spots and identify new ones and ask me, could you please make a picture of that? Yeah, I don't mind with the fact that cameras will look at me being naked. I feel way more comfortable that I am being assessed twice a day with new spots. For sure, that startup will be very successful simply because there are people who has got genetically, history of parents or grandparents dying from the disease, so they will want to have that at houses. It's just one simple example, and this is nothing about really a biology. This is a simple implementation of cameras, artificial intelligence, libraries of spots, etc. So not a very complicated thing. So far, I haven't seen that. So who knows? Maybe after my suggestion today, someone will start this.
Yeah, so I guess that that reflects some of the view that we have, which is that there are not just purely biological or biotech-based technologies that form part of the longevity economy, that they can be, for example, machine vision and AI applied to a shower application. And incidentally, we know of a toilet that does stool analysis every time you go to the toilet. Which is using machine learning and AI to establish whether you have health conditions in your stools. So there's a prime example of a company that's just raised 10 million in the US to be able to apply that type of technology. So what you're saying really, Timur, is that if I understand you correctly, that it's still a very early stage, but there are emerging technologies that exist now that can be applied now to filling the gap between the work that Peter's doing and the extension of people's lives and well-being from a diagnostic perspective.
I agree, and for the next 30, 40 years, biotech will grow up as a share of the global economy.
Yeah, and I guess that obviously, Peter, from your perspective, your fundraising or were fundraising last time I looked. How are you finding the investor appetite for the work that you're doing? When you go into an investor presentation, do you say that we're in the longevity business, or do you hedge slightly to make it sound a bit more regular healthcare?
Well, I think that we are pretty radical by informing our investors, of course, that we are going into aging, because otherwise there are enough startups which are solving specific diseases. But of course, we do not exist in vacuum, and we need to operate within reasonable and actually quite advanced medical system which is around us. So I never complain about regulators and never complain about doctors, because due to these two professions, we are living almost 2 times longer than our predecessors. So we have to understand that. I would join actually Timur by saying that, of course, lifestyle has enormous influence on our health span and lifespan. And I think that by surrounding ourselves with smart sensors and AI, we should be able to actually optimize lifestyle of every one of us in a very personalized manner. And I think this alone should be able to produce maybe 5 to 10 years of lifespan improvement, especially in younger people. And that's quite an achievement. So if you look about that from the insurance perspective, this is a lot of money. That's really a large leap. So I think somebody will make up such a startup, and people will get to live longer even before we get our hardcore pharmacology.
Yeah. Well, as I got one of these. So I'm sure you guys have got them too. We've got another 10 minutes before we wrap up. So I'd encourage anybody that has any questions for Peter or for Timur, please pop your questions into the chat channel on the session. But I guess it's obviously interesting to understand, as experts as you are, what you do yourselves in terms of your own longevity and health span. I mean, Timur, what are your practices during the day or week for your longevity?
I'm doing very simple things, very basic ones. I'm doing 10,000 steps a day, and hopefully I will start to do 15,000 steps a day, because that's the real minimum. But even doing 10,000 steps a day improves your well-being dramatically. I do remember I started to do it 1 year ago. Now I'm doing it for nearly 400 days consecutively. And it is absolutely dramatic change. I feel way better. Second thing is not having dinners. So I have got a window for 6 hours. I can have 2 meals. No breaks between, just 2 meals, breakfast and lunch. That's it, nothing else, nothing in between. And for 18 hours, I am not having meals, only water. And this, of course, there are some exceptions. I'm not very strict with it, but this is very important.
So this is fasting effectively, which has become, obviously it's been something that's been around from a dietary perspective for quite a long time, but calorie restriction is a known longevity technique, shall we say. So are you doing that from a longevity perspective or from a diet perspective?
Phil, there is no calorie restriction. So I'm eating whatever amount I would like to eat, but there is a just food window. Yeah, so it's an intermittent fasting. And also sometimes I do fast for 48 hours, water only, but no more than 48 hours, just no more than 48 hours. And so from breakfast till the breakfast in 2 nights. And also I am following the advice from the gut microbiome test. It is one of my investments. It's viome.com website. And for less than $200, you can learn a lot about what kind of food you should eat, what is your superfood, your particularly, and what is not. And particularly, I found that apples and raspberries is my superfood, but tomatoes and bell pepper and broccoli, for example, is something I shouldn't eat at all because of the virus which causes inflammation. I would never know that until Viome would provide me that technology.
Excellent. So when you look at that, that's the point you were making earlier about diagnostics and having knowledge, which then gives you the ability to make those interventions in your own life.
Yes, and as soon as you do some certain physical activity every day, like walking, not running, walking, as soon as you eat healthy, sleep healthy, avoiding inflammations in your body, the next stage, I would convince everyone to go and look at your mental health. What kind of traps you fell into your life? and everyone has got, of course, different mental issues, different mental traps. But I would say our civilization is definitely mentally unhealthy. In most of the population is mentally unhealthy, more than 50%.
Right. Yes, and of course, mental health at the moment with COVID is very relevant. How about you, Peter? What do you do, Peter, in terms of your interventions now?
Once again, I have to join with Timur. I'm not as extreme as him. I also have a food window, so I'm fasting for about 16 hours. Unfortunately, this kind of a diet makes a man healthy but socially dead, so you have to do some exceptions. Physical activity, a number of steps, also some little reasonable weightlifting that is proven to be very healthy. And once again, the mental health. We're thinking about diet, we're thinking about exercises, but we underestimate the effects of depression and cognitive stress on our well-being. So if you study biomarkers in model animals, and also we have now experiments coming from monkeys, you can see that social status, challenge to your social status, the stress coming from work essentially kills you. We are social animals, and the competition within our species is much harder than the competition with other species, because we're competing for the same resources. So, the ghost of Darwin is a very nasty ghost. When we suffer mentally, we live shorter, and that's very profound.
Yes, understood. Yeah, well, I guess that mental health has been a reflection of both of your responses to that. Just if I may, we've only got a few more minutes left. Maybe Timur, if I could just ask you. You mentioned before, obviously, the companies that you're looking at and machine vision in the shower. What are you seeing that's exciting at the moment in the field of longevity? Is there anything that's kind of captured your imagination? You've gone, that's great. That's gonna succeed.
Every January, Aubrey de Grey is making a conference in San Francisco. It's a one-day conference with lots of startups presenting new technologies. And you would think I'm biased about Viome, but definitely that's great. For less than $200, you will get knowledge you can't get anywhere else. And there are lots of startups, and you can follow Sense Foundation, for example, or Sense is another organization which can clearly describe to you what is going on. For example, I'm very much excited with not my investment, but this ring Aura, which is really small, works for 1 week, and provides you information about your sleep patterns. So really, it's much better to learn and study all the startups, because there are startups who are making now Sanalytics, and that's great. That's absolutely amazing thing. There are other startups. There are plenty of information. So if you would just visit Sense, if you would visit Sense Foundation, you will find a lot of information.
Yeah, and of course on our publication, longevity.technology, we cover all of the new startups that are coming in the space, which is, there are more and more of them each day. And Peter, what are you seeing at the moment that's exciting? I mean, obviously in your own work or in other people's work, obviously you're in Singapore, which is a hive of longevity activity.
Well, as I said, first of all, we now have a proof that you may not age. I think it's very remarkable, and that's not a pipe dream anymore. And second, I think last year we have seen a few examples of true rejuvenation, both in animals and in a pilot human trial. So for me, that's a very exciting proof of concept that means that with some effort, good luck, we should be able to achieve a dramatic life extension in years to come.
Yeah, and of course, the work that you're doing at the moment, and I'm not asking for anything confidential. So we've only got 1 minute left, but I guess that in some respects, the sector is growing. We're seeing more and more activity. Timo, obviously, you feel that the early stage activities that are supporting interventions and diagnosis are where it's at. Peter, you're in that kind of long journey of drug discovery and target discovery. But I guess that in some respects, your optimism for the longevity sector, if I was to ask you a question on a scale of 1 to 10 within the next 5 years, what scale do you think it will be now in terms of this sector being recognized as a new sector completely?
7 to 8, maybe, Timur?
Yeah, I think within the next 10 years. I think 7 to 8 is a realistic one, but I would be a little bit more conservative. 10 years, I would say, yeah.
But obviously, for those that are brave and those that have got an interest in getting in early, you would both agree that this is quite an interesting sector for both startups and investors to participate in. Would that be right?
Sure, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, great. Well, I guess I think we're out of time now, and we're out of questions as well. So thank you both so much for your time today, and it's been really, really great to hear from you both. So Timur Artemyev and Peter Fedichev, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.